Cheryl, we understand, is a great believer in humanity's kindness, sensitivity to others, and she feels that her decision to write this book, Resilience, Amazing Courage, Stories of Young Holocaust Survivors, is a firm reflection of her objective to unite and ignite the flame in the next generation to forge a better world. It's now my pleasure to invite Cheryl Reibel, the author of Resilience, to the podium so she can share more with all of us about her compelling book, Resilience, and why she wrote it. Cheryl, please come forward, and thank you so much for being with us today.
I want to thank you all for coming to see my exhibit. Resilience is a legacy project. Its true stories needed to be told. The exhibit is based on the book, which comprises 37 stories, because the number 18 in Hebrew means life. I came up with 37 by double counting 18 to honor the two lives that survived and adding one more for the next generation. My book, Resilience, was read by the grandson of Dr. Viktor Frankl, a world-renowned psychiatrist and the author of Man's Search for Meaning. His grandson, who continued his work, reached out to me from Vienna and offered to write the foreword for the book. He shared with me that the book exemplified the work of his grandfather, who survived over 4 different concentration camps, using his theory of logotherapy, which means you must have a purpose in life in order to survive. The courageous stories in the exhibit of young Holocaust survivors depict the strength and hope of young people as a universal message of unconscionable hate for senseless reason, as experienced in the Holocaust. I grew up surrounded by survivors. The book, The Stories of Resilience, are all true stories. I made a deliberate decision. Each story will only be 30 words or less, and the story's meaning would be straightforward and relatable young people all around, because they've not learned how hatred progresses and the lack of knowledge of the persecution of people. For most of them, the history of Holocaust is unknown and forgotten. With Resilience, I aim to connect with people age 11 and older. I hope they'll learn unity and tolerance before they become aware of the destruction of spiraling prejudice, as we see now. Resilience is a powerful book that is forever unfolding and developing with many beautiful, impactful circumstances. The artist was McLean Fletcher, and she did not know about the Holocaust. So she was able to interpret the story visually to help amplify the story's mood and make it different situations that young people face. Each section has its own theme of resilience and emphasizes the young people and their narrative, demonstrating their strength and their ability to handle their situation. Each chapter describes the history and order to the events occurred by depicting the time during the Holocaust. Resilience is now across the US, Eastern Europe, and requested in other countries as well, unfortunately, because of what's going on in the world. Resilience is truly an amazing, courageous story of young Holocaust survivors. Now, I'd like to share this video with you all. This video depicts the time of the Holocaust and my presentation of the stories of resilience. And I'm honored that you all gave me the time to present this to you, and their stories live on.
Branded arms, one number apart, not a word between opposite sides of the mourning line. The line to eat, so little, passing their rations between the weakest. 2 girls, strangers in the camp, no names. Do not show our numbers. We want to stay. We want to keep our secret. They will not separate us. We will always be one number apart. We know soon we will be sisters again.
My name is Cheryl Reibel, and I grew up surrounded by survivors of the Holocaust. My mother, my father, my aunts, my uncles, the people we talked to around the dining room table, and the little park across the street from the school, survivors, each and every one. My childhood was saturated with their tales of faith and fear and endurance. I tapped into these memories, mine and theirs, to create Resilience, a collection of amazing and courageous stories of young Holocaust survivors. Resilience, though, is not a typical account of the Shoah. Resilience is a book of poetry designed to carry the voices of these incredible Jewish children and teens to the hearts of all people, in all places, in all times. With my poetry and illustrator McLean Fletcher's simple yet evocative art style, Resilience captures the innocence and inner strength of these children, even as the Nazis sought to crush them both their hope and their lives. Resilience speaks with the enduring voices of these children and connects the past to the present and to the future that our children will inherit one day. I captured these stories because we're starting to forget. It's been more than 70 years since the Holocaust, and one by one we're losing their survivors to the march of time. This decade may well be the last we're able to hear their stories from their own lips. And at the same time, our children can't relate to these stories very well, far away as they are in time and space. We're losing these wells of strength, wisdom, and humanity, and already we make the mistake of following the past. But we have a choice. We can learn from it instead. Join me in keeping the story of these incredible survivors alive. Join me in fostering tolerance and kindness through art. Join me in creating a world where the tragedy of the Holocaust can truly never happen again to anyone.
I'd like to continue with my father's story of a neighbor who was a righteous Gentile, Rebecca Reibel, who risked her life to save my father's family. She saw what was going on and witnessed the killing of most of my father's family. She spotted the kids outside, and she quickly took my father's two sisters and hid them in her small, dark attic. Then she helped my father and brother hide in a cemetery. You see, her husband was a Nazi, and you can imagine the risk she took. Chance of the courage of demonstrating, she hid my father's two sisters in her attic and sent her own child away to a relative so no one would discover what she was doing. When her husband went to work, she would knock on the attic to let the girls know they could move around without being heard. To keep these young girls busy with their hands and minds, Mrs. Reibel gave them old linens and threads to embroider, beautiful flowers that waited out the war. And this is one of the pieces that they embroidered. It's an original piece. She would only feed them scraps of food so her husband wouldn't notice the extra food was gone. Since my father and uncle were hiding in a nearby cemetery, she left them shreds of food in the garbage, and they took turns risking their lives to run for food. When the war was over, my father and uncle spent their days working together. One sister married a man who was a large Zionist, and they moved to Israel. The other sister married a man whose family sponsored them to move to Denver, where he became a chaplain. My father and uncle moved to America. They continued to keep in touch with Mrs. Reibel after they moved to the United States. Since the war, a great part of whatever they earned was sent back to her in the Ukraine. When I was about 11 years old, my father sponsored Mrs. Reibel to come to America. As soon as she came to America, to our house, they decided that all the siblings and families should come to our house and reunite with her and introduce her to their children. My father made many plans to take her to many cities in the United States, but she refused to go. Mrs. Reibel said, sorry. All she wanted to do was buy fresh food and cook for the families every day. She felt sad that she had only fed them garbage for years. Every day she made fresh bread, pierogies, all forms of stews, potatoes, and all Eastern European delights. She took just such joy in watching the family eat, and it gained 10 pounds that year. Before going back, my father and uncle wanted her to move to a new area for a fresh start, in case anybody found out what she did and they didn't want her to be uncomfortable. In her honor, we planted a tree on the Walk of the Righteous Gentile Yad Vashem, so visitors would learn the story of her braveness. My mother, Lisa Kushner, was 12 when the Nazis came. She survived with her father, Nam Kushner, and her sister Red. They lived in the Navarre ghetto. My mother worked cleaning the officer's office and heard overheard the next week they would execute all the Jews living there in an onslaught. So the Jews started building a tunnel under the barracks by digging the mud out from covered parts of the floor, placing the mud in their socks, and emptying them outside behind the barracks where nobody was looking. They all escaped one night. There were 216 of them left, through the tunnel into the woods where they were found by the Belsky brothers. They were brave partisans who combed the thick woods of Belarus looking for Jews that were hiding. I was in the midst of saying a prayer for my mother. An elderly man was right next to me and trying to open the door. And I went over and I helped him. His wife came over, thanked me, and introduced herself. And it was her husband, an only Belsky brother, who was responsible for saving my mother and her family. So it was a real twist and turn.